It's just a few minutes after 6 p.m. here on Monday, October the 14th, and this is the regular business meeting of the McDowell County Board of Education, and we'll call the meeting to order. And our first item this evening is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Poupeau makes the motion. And Ms. Helms makes the second. Is there any discussion? Any need for revision? If not, all those in favor, right hand. And the motion carries unanimously. Okay. It's, after what all our communities have been through for the last couple of weeks, it's really only appropriate that we take a long moment of silence this evening to remember those who have suffered loss and to thank those who have rendered aid and hold our neighbors close in our hearts. So if you would oblige, let's take a moment together. I thank you all. Thank you. Item 4 this evening is pledge to the flag and presentation of colors, and usually our NJROTC cadets do that for us each evening that we meet. And Dr. Gritt, would you try kind of explain where our cadets are this evening?
Our cadets have quite a few donations, I understand. Cadets had quite a few donations that they were dealing with, and I understand that they were getting their uniforms pressed so they could attend a drill meet coming up this week, and they called and asked if they could take a rain check on tonight's meeting, and I said absolutely. So Mr. Frank's got a report. I don't want to steal his thunder on some of the great work they've been doing, but they've really been doing some work, so I want to make sure he has an opportunity to share that with you later.
All right. Well, and speaking of Mr. Frank, he is a veteran, and I've asked him if he would lead us in our pledge this evening.
We're good. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Frank, for doing that for us. Item 5 is superintendent remarks, and Dr. Gritt, if you're ready, we'll turn the floor to you.
All right, thank you, Chairman English, ladies and gentlemen of the board, folks out there. It's been a lot going on over the past 18 days, and I'm just going to kind of summarize some of this. Probably the shortest of the superintendent remarks that I've done all year, but I put a lot of thought into these. Over the last 18 days, I've come to learn a great deal about McDowell County. I've learned that when things get tough, McDowell County will lay aside differences and work together to support the community. I've learned that we have some exceptional talent in our emergency services, law enforcement, fire and rescue departments, county and city officials, and a host of faith-based churches that have brought countless dollars in aid to our communities. I've learned that we are a tough group of administrators who won't quit and recognize their role as much more than education, as they quickly transformed into muscle and brains to care for our community's needs. I've learned that we have staff that have a can-do attitude, from volunteering all over the community to pitching in to be ready to open a school in another location in under a week. I've learned that we are not alone, and we have so many partners in this work and friends across the state and nation that have reached out to offer support. I've learned, even with all of this, Board, our work for the community will transition from the immediate needs of food and shelter and that of advocacy for our county It's gonna transition to advocacy for our county and our community with our friends in legislation. I've learned that we are stronger than the storm, and we must continue to display resilience as the work will continue for the coming years while we work to rebuild, reestablish, and revitalize our community. From what I've seen over the last 18 days, McDowell County has what is needed to stay focused on the task at hand and work together to ensure that we continue to thrive. That said, McDowell County Schools will play a big role in our partnership with the community to overcome the hurdles we face, and I am honored for the opportunity to be part of the team that is battle-tested and ready for the challenge. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Well, Dr. Gritt, I think one of the statements you made in your remarks there that deserves more attention is the fact that our community's evolving from response to advocacy, and the recovery efforts here are going to be a long process, slow and tedious at times, and we're going to need more resources than what our county can provide for itself. And I think you're talking about advocating with our legislators to look after, help us help ourselves is really going to be key to a smooth and a full recovery. So if anyone listening or on the board or serving on other government agencies has the ear of someone in Raleigh, now is the time to begin to plant the seed that we're okay for right now, but it's not going to be too much longer until we're struggling to finish what has been started. So if you are able and you do have those contacts, I know our folks would be really appreciative of you making mention of those. Okay, next up, item 6. You folks on the board and the public too should know by now that for the last number of months we've been working with a study group from North Carolina State University about future needs for our system here, thinking 10, 20 years down the road. And Dr. Gritt, I'll ask you to introduce our folks that are here to present some preliminary findings.
Sure. We've got from the NC State Study Group, Mr. Thomas Dudley and Mr. Brian Godfrey. And I think we've got your presentation queued up there, fellas. Mr. Berryhill will be happy to support you in the back of the room any way you need there. I'll turn it over to you guys.
Before you get started, gentlemen, which one's Dudley and which one's Godfrey?
I'm Thomas Dudley.
All right, thank you.
Dr. Gritt, thank you. Chair English, other members of the board.
Excuse me, sir, if you don't mind, speak into the mic. We've become such a wireless society that we do have a number of folks that listen to our meetings online. So if you can speak into the microphone, it'll be easier for them to hear.
I'll do the best I can.
Thank
sir.
you. That's all we can ask.
So this evening, we're going to be sharing the results of the study that we've conducted on behalf of the school district. Would it be possible to full screen?
Board members, you should have in your packet, it's a blue folder within your, and I've made hard copies here of what they'll be going over tonight.
Yeah, it's not going to on the, yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. So we'll begin with a brief introduction to our organization. Next slide. Before I hand it over to my colleague, Brian Godfrey, who will be discussing the land use study that's been conducted. And then he'll hand it back over to me, and we'll be discussing, or I'll be discussing then the membership forecast as well as the facility optimization scenario that we've conducted. Next slide, please. Now, ITRI is the name of our parent organization. It stands for the Institute for Transportation Research and Education. It's a university research extension that has been conducting transportation-related research in North Carolina for over 40 years. We're housed on NC State Centennial Campus in Raleigh. Next slide, please. Our actual group, the smaller group, is called ORED, and we're an unbiased third-party evaluation research group that strives to depoliticize school planning. Next slide. As you can see here, we've had the privilege of working with quite a few districts over the history of the program. Next slide. And this is what that looks like on a map. Next slide. What do those services entail? Well, typically it starts with a land use study, understanding what's going on the ground. From there, we do geographic information systems analysis, GIS. From there, that includes also membership forecasting, including school level forecasting as well. There are also 2 types of optimization that we offer related to school siting as well as attendance zones. And with that, I will hand it over to my colleague, Mr. Godfrey.
Good evening. As a foundational component of our work, we conduct what we refer to as a land use study. This is a comprehensive examination of all of the factors that influence growth, from residential development to commercial industrial development and so forth. So that's census data as well as local information. And so as a first step, we had the opportunity to speak with local experts. Next slide, please. We want to take an opportunity to thank those folks who participated. We learned a lot about McDowell County in the process and really were able to leverage that information. So what did we learn? Well, the first and foremost aspect of future school facility planning is understanding residential development and growth. What we see is that residential development is being planned across the county, primarily concentrated, of course, in the municipal cores of Marion and Old Fort. And we're seeing different housing type in the pipeline. We're seeing single family, but multifamily as well, and the conversion of existing housing stock and second floor spaces in downtown. Commercial development has also been quite successful the past few years. We're seeing a lot of leisure and tourism focused businesses, and that pairs very well with the Main Street retail and food that we see, for example, here in downtown Marion. On top of that, we've also seen over the past couple of years some new chain retail restaurants, retails, medical offices, so forth, that we commonly see precede additional residential growth, so a positive sign there. And then, of course, McDowell County has a very strong industrial sector. That will continue to be the case in the near future. We're seeing new businesses and industries open. We're seeing a clustering of mid-sized manufacturing. And then we're seeing additional sites available from the existing business parks to larger sites like the site shared with Burke County. We want to take this moment to acknowledge, of course, all the hardships that have come as a result of the storm, but want to also recognize that this is a story of resilience. We want to say thank you to those who are involved in the recovery efforts. And importantly, all of the conditions that were present this summer are still the case. All of the conditions and ingredients for growth and continued success continue to be the case in McDowell County. Next slide, please. So we want to thank the planning staff again from McDowell County, Marion, and Old Fort. Working with them in public records, we were able to inventory 15 developments that are in the pipeline, so either proposed or approved but not yet built. By taking this data and using it in GIS analysis, we are able to carry forward and project forward those student populations. So with this data in hand, I will hand it back to my colleague, Mr. Dudley.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Mr. Godfrey. So a critical factor in any demographic forecast is resident live births. And that's especially important for school-age populations because a large share of the numbers that you see on this chart are going to become your kindergartners 5 years down the line. As a bit of context, we're looking at the numbers from these last 6 years. This is the most recent data available, and we're seeing some modest declines overall, slight declines. From there, we'll go to the next slide. Another important factor is your membership and what numbers go in behind the numbers. So looking at the momentum that's occurring in the system as cohorts are moving up through the system, we also see declines on this slide as well. To the next slide. What's being presented here, we really like as a quick visual way of being able to see where your facility needs are versus where they will be in the future. This is a standard deliverable that we produce for districts across the state. And working our way from left to right, I'll describe, we have the name of the school, we have the capacity of the school next. From there, we have the membership as of a couple weeks ago for this current school year. And then every year out for the next 10 years, we have the forecasted number of students expected at each one of those schools based on the data that's been collected and the trend information that we have. So what you'll see here in the background, the coloring information that you see, that's utilization. So when I say utilization, I just mean that number of students divided by the capacity of that school. So a school that's red, you could call it overutilized, overcrowded, that sort of thing. And so what we see here in this table for this district is an absence of overcrowding, which is a good thing. I know this is a lot of information to all be presenting at once, so I wanted to pause at this moment and ask if there are any questions on this slide before I proceed.
Can you just give us a second to scan through it? Thank you.
It's interesting that you're looking at the projection of Eastfield to not change.
So that is for a couple of the schools indicated on this. The best information that we have is what the enrollment target is for that school,
Mhm.
and especially with Eastfield because it is a magnet. That was an assumption that we were willing to to proceed with.
Okay.
Are there numbers that show the number of students in private schools and being homeschooled to run parallel with what you've got here?
So the two, and those are great questions because it's often, those are the two components as far as data go that are the largest unknowns. We have counts going back, not the most up-to-date data, but there are county level counts for homeschool students and private students. Once you try to get more granular data than that, it becomes much more difficult. So doing a sort of breakdown similar to what you've seen here, but for homeschool and private students, to my knowledge, is not something that we would have the data to be able to do.
Well, I mean, you've got a decline in ADM, and so it's kind of, I mean, it looks like it's largely explainable by demographic and population and not shifts to alternative types of education. But I wish we had a way to kind of know that.
The best information we have, I mean, looking back over the, say, past 5 years, I mean, we know that the number of homeschool students within the district has largely been unchanged. Private school, there has been an increase, and you know, that's looking back at data from last school year, and it'll still be a number of months before the appropriate agencies release new information on that topic.
I would think too, Chuck, that, I mean, one way maybe to find out that data is, are there any other states who have gone through the process of kind of what the shift that North Carolina is making as far as the vouchers are concerned? And so if any other states have gone through that process, then we might be able to gather some, you know, good data from what they saw happen over the course of a handful of years, or, you know, the same number of years based on, you know, what happened there. So.
I appreciate that point. I have seen some data, limited data available on how many, the sort of by county breakdown of the voucher applications over the past few months. That's the most recent data that I could point to.
Here in North Carolina.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
I guess, and I'm going off a little bit different direction, and this is probably just rumors, right? But I've heard in the past that our population is shifting to more of that retirement age. Like that's who's moving in, it's not, so would that be the correlation as to why our ADM is also, I mean, because it looks like the live births are also trending down, which would mean you're not having families with, you know, childbearing age moving in or replacing those once they move out. But I've heard that we have a shift that's going more towards that retirement. Again, I don't have any data to back that up. Was there any of that that you looked at or not really?
Yes, so one of the metrics that we use as we're doing this work is SGRs, student generation rates, especially when we're looking at new developments.
Okay.
So that gives a solid, very solid picture of when a new subdivision comes online, how many students do you expect to come from that new subdivision? And the student generation rates that we see that have been observed for current on-the-ground subdivisions are lower than what we might expect in other districts in proximity, we'll say. So I believe you're absolutely right. Yes.
Okay, okay, so good, good rumor. Okay, question, just so I understand, I'm sure my other friends here do. Back on the land use study development inventory sheet, this one with that, sorry, what is units approved / proposed? What are units?
Yes, units refers to residential dwelling units. So
Dwelling units, okay.
yes, so that would be a single family household. Now that accounts for apartments, condos, or a single family home on a lot. So it could be lots or units.
Okay. And all the little red circles are where those areas have been approved?
That's
Or-
correct.
Or
Proposed or
anticipated.
approved.
Okay. Or proposed, I should say, proposed to. Okay. Okay. I'm wrapping my head around it. I'm trying to figure out where those are in comparison necessarily to where our schools are, because then when you turn around and you flip that to this chart, watching those numbers, I was just trying to, I'm not very good at this, but just trying to put that correlation together between where where these proposed units are gonna be approved or developed versus where those schools are. Am I crazy? Am I thinking way
That's a
crazy?
great question. I mean,
Okay.
so we, a standard,
I thought I was really going in a circle here, but okay, go ahead.
that's also something that we can provide, different maps that have the attendance zones as well as the red circles that you saw. Or
Uh-huh.
we, in other cases, can just add a couple on the table with the lots and units and the names of the developments, just a couple extra columns that just say, oh, Marion, or, you know, Old Fort, or, you know, so you can tell what attendance zones those fall in.
Could you do that? That'd be great.
That would be good.
Yeah, be glad to.
Thank you. That'd be awesome. Thank you. Okay.
So I know this is, as I mentioned, a lot going on one slide here, but if it's all right to proceed, go ahead. All right, next slide, please. So from here and building on the enrollment forecast that you saw, I wanted to just take a minute to step back and think more broadly or describe more broadly the services that we offer related to optimization. I've just described it as, you know, 2 words so far. So what we can do mathematically is model new school sites, attendance zones, things like that, based on operations research algorithms that we deploy as part of our projects. And as part of doing that, we can model parameters such as demographic balance or adjusting other criteria defined by the school board. And we also can explore things like alternative building configurations, things like that. So that's the broad what we do. To nail it down a little bit more and make it a little bit more tangible for this district, and as part of this project, what we were looking at was, so in the center of the district at the elementary level, where are you going to need elementary capacity in the long term? Just thinking as a what-if scenario, what does that look like? And so what we deployed was a standard process that we have deployed for many other districts. Next slide, please. And so this that you're seeing on this slide, this is a what-if scenario. This is a situation where the perimeter elementary schools are unchanged, operating as they are today. And so from there, we're looking more toward the center of the district and taking, as a what-if scenario, taking Marion and Eastfield offline and saying, well, where is the true need of elementary capacity in this region, more broadly speaking? So that's what we're seeing here on this slide. The red circle indicates that optimal location for elementary capacity, a school. And to reiterate how this all came together, it's built on that information, the demographic information about where your students are, how those population trends are going to continue, and the impact from the residential development data that was collected by my colleague. So if we can zoom in a little bit, next slide please. This is what we're looking at. And one of the big takeaways here is that just this is a durable analysis. This is the type of thing that isn't going to change overnight. If you're looking at making decisions related to elementary capacity in this portion of the district, this will serve you for quite some time. And so that is what we ask, is if there, as you look toward making future decisions, please keep this analysis and this work in mind. And with that, I will more formally ask if there are any questions for us or discussion on this topic.
I do have a question. So in that circle, is the that's where we need to maintain 2 schools? That's where we need, because I'm doing the math real fast, and if that's a potential suggestion that we combine a school, that is one massive elementary school. So can you clarify what, again, I'm sorry, I was doing math and probably tuned you out, forgive me, it's when you said it. So, so tell me again what the red circle indicates the optimal location for one?
Elementary
For
capacity.
elementary capacity.
Okay.
He didn't say 1 school, 2 schools, 5 schools, just, that's where they
We-
forecast the capacity will
The
be.
most volume of elementary students would be within that zone right there.
Okay,
Exactly.
okay, thank you. Forgive me for mathing.
Sir, you also indicated that you were looking at a 1,000 person vacancy in our schools now. In other words, we've got capacity for 1,000 more. Is that correct, or we lost 1,000?
I believe you're referring to the sort of that gap, the difference between enrollment versus capacity at the elementary school level, roughly 1,000 seats. That's correct, yes.
Wait, where did that go?
So what, in other words, what you've
Oh, I see.
you seem to have discovered is that in our outlying elementary attendance zones that we have excess capacity, with the exception of maybe Eastfield.
As identified in the table. That's
Right.
correct. Yes.
But with those schools that are more closely to the population center of the county, Marion area, that's where we may need extra capacity in the future.
It's certainly the most, I shouldn't say certainly the most certain. It's because of that population density, that is certainly where I would be looking.
But that all could change if, let's say, that, in the next 10 years, a very large employer moves into an outlying region of the county, and, all of a sudden, there's 1,500, 2,000 people move in to work there, make their living there, and they have families. So, this is a fluid document.
That's true. It
Right.
is. And certainly a valid point for any district in North Carolina. I did want to make one clarifying point about the capacities that you see listed in that table as well, because there has been an adjustment there to more accurately account for pre-K classroom usage. Just wanted to quickly make a note of that. If there are classrooms that are dedicated to pre-K, that precludes the ability to use those for K through 12.
Right.
And the count of students that you see all across that table in the forecast is just K through 12, so we have to apples
Okay.
and apples, make
All
that
right.
adjustment.
We've also got several Head Start students that are in some of those classes in Smart Start programs, so that capacity is a little bit more full if you bring in those numbers. But those are a little different. Numbers are recorded through DHHS, not through DPI.
Okay, another one of my silly questions. So, looking at that map, the blue, would that be considered right now Marion Elementary's school district, like where we're pulling those kids from? And is the pink the Eastfield district?
So the blue background color section that's inside the red circle, that's
Yeah.
Eastfield's attendance center.
That's Eastfield's. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I meant to say that. I
Yeah,
meant to
I
say
could
that.
tell,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and then the pink is Marion Elementary's like district.
Correct.
When we're busing and all that. These are all like where we're busing, correct? Like when we say you're in the Marion district, right? Okay,
Correct.
gotcha. So blue is Eastfield and pink is Marion.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Okay.
Do you have a question?
I did have a question, guys. Going back to, it's several slides back. You had a chart in here that I was having a hard time reading the colors on it. It's on the land use study factors, future land use map of McDowell County. Can you talk to us a little bit about what those colors on the, I couldn't see the scale on that one. It's
Oh,
one more
yeah.
back, I think, Garrett. Yes, that one.
Sir, this is actually from the McDowell County's most recent comprehensive plan, and this is referred to as a future land use map. So this is displayed for informational purposes, but what you see here indicates the the projected future land use across McDowell County. Now, clearly, with all that green up there in the mountains, that's conserved recreational lands and so forth. Large parts of McDowell County will continue to remain rural, and what we have found through the land use study is, there are residential subdivisions occurring in the unincorporated parts of the county, but primarily residential growth is projected to continue to be in Old Fort and Marion.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have just a quick question. As you fellows were researching and coming up with your data, did you look at any county-wide growth statistics? I know, we all keep hearing that it's super expensive to live in Buncombe County, just to our west, and folks are beginning to migrate our way. Did you dig into any of that, or?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the land use study details a lot of the data that goes into understanding growth and development in McDowell County. Now, as you said, there's anecdotally a lot that goes into what makes someone want to move to McDowell County. And that's where I think it's important to again emphasize that before the storm and after the storm, all of the conditions are present. Good paying jobs, high quality of life, a great place to raise a family. None of that has changed, and we expect to see that going forward 10, 20 years.
So, in 10 years, the decline in enrollment may actually reverse because it's such a wonderful place to come and raise a family.
Agreed, and like you said, things can change quickly. If a big site gets developed, a big employer comes in, things can change quickly. Now, there are limitations in the housing supply, of course, but what we have seen is there's ongoing interest in McDowell County, certainly.
Okay. Well, that's encouraging. Thanks to economic development and other folks that are trying to keep McDowell County humming. Any other questions for our presenters this evening? Huh?
No, that's not part of the presentation. That's just a.
All right. Well, gentlemen, we thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Look forward to talking to you again. I know several questions have been asked, so if If you can provide some follow-up information, that would be greatly appreciated.
Excellent. Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, is that going to be reviewed?
We're not reviewing this one, is that?
They're asking about
Oh,
this other
so-
document that you've
Yeah,
got. If you
that's
want.
an excellent report that's been put together that provides context as a background for the
Okay.
information that you've seen, specifically the enrollment forecast. So,
Okay, so this is the foundation for this.
I believe that's a fair assessment, yes.
Okay, so when we read this, we'll go, oh yeah, we saw that stuff, right? Is that?
A lot will sound familiar.
Okay.
This is more the data,
Um,
and then you took the data and put it into charts. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a fair description.
that's what they did. Good job.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, and appreciate you folks coming all the way up from the state capitol today. Hope you have a safe trip home.
Tonight? Are you driving home tonight?
Tough to find hotels in our region right now.
Well, you better get going, because you're gonna be late.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, then.
Sorry, I got a kid on the other side of the state right now, and I'm taking that trip a lot, so.
All right.
It's a big trip.
We'll move on along with our meeting. Item 7, unfinished business. Dr. Gritt, operations and facilities update.
All right, thank you, folks. Quite a few things here. Before Garrett pulls those pictures up, and we'll get to a little bit of what's going on that I know everybody wants to learn more about, particularly with Old Fort. I'm going to go just over a few county updates. Then I'll go through the operations, and then next I'll go through the storm damage report, and then finally we'll look at the pictures for Old Fort and where we are now with Pleasant Gardens. So just a quick county update. As of Sunday morning, 6 a.m., the power had been restored to all but 153 customers, and many cell phone towers are back online. The last report I had was we were down just 5 towers. At one point, I think that was 12 to 14. So cell phone towers are improving. The internet is operational at all schools. I'm happy to report that happened on Friday. That was a huge piece for us, particularly at North Cove. Let's see. The wind last night caused a few issues, and we were up a little bit more than 200 this morning with customers without power. So there was some wind that was on the mountains last night and the ridges that caused some more power issues. Operationally, the schools operated on a regular schedule today with Old Fort students in grades 3 through 5 reporting to PG. There were also the Littles, the Head Start and the Early Head Start programs, and the Smart Start that attended Pleasant Gardens Baptist Church in their nursery. So that program was operational today. Ms. Hamby will be giving you updates here shortly on our attendance. But folks, I'm very pleased with how our attendance has been over the past few days since last Wednesday. It's quite impressive. On Tuesday, tomorrow, all schools will operate on a regular schedule with the Old Fort grades K through 2. Today it was 3 through 5, so they could get acclimated to the building. Tomorrow it's kindergarten and 2nd grade. And on Wednesday, all students will be back in school, and that'll be the first time that we've had all of our students back in session, and we're really happy to have them. Bus routes, the roads continue improving. But this is one of the things I wanted to share with the board and what I shared with the principals this afternoon, because this is a key piece, and I need help explaining this. I need help explaining it to the community, but I'll just read this to you. As we transition our routes, we will adjust routes on our website by noon each day. And the principal will do a call-out by 2 p.m. of updates for individual buses. At this point, it gets very murky if we start doing district-level call-outs on buses. So bus by bus, parents that have children that are riding those buses are part of that call list. So we'll do individual bus call-outs to them. The reason that I'm going to do it by noon and then again by 2 p.m. This will ensure daylight for our drivers so they can run that route in the afternoon and see those roads. As many of you know, there are trees that are still hanging very close to the white lines in different places, so I want them to see any possible hazards or any issues with it. So that way when they run the route the following morning, we'll know they'll be clear to go. So that's the reason that I'm doing that. There are a number of routes that will still require community bus stops. I mean, there's just no way around it. We have three roads that are still, many roads that are still not open, but three primary roads in 221, 226, and 226A. Those roads, 226 is scheduled to open tomorrow. It was also scheduled to open on Saturday. But right now, the report that I had this afternoon, that was still scheduled to open tomorrow. So as those roads open, that doesn't mean that we will immediately put our buses on them. We're going to ask for support from DOT because there are also some guardrails missing and some different things like that. So I want to get clearance from DOT before we put those buses on the road in that area. I'm also on operations, happy to report you guys should have access to a schedule that we will begin our athletics again, and we hope to see folks out there this upcoming week as we start back our athletic schedule. All of our student athletes are back in session. That's at the middle and high schools. As you know, the middle school, their conference travels primarily to Burke County, and Burke County was in much better shape than Buncombe County. Our high school athletics will travel to Buncombe County, and as you know, I'm sure you're well aware that Buncombe County schools remain closed. From what has been shared with us, it's the issues that they're having with their water. So there is one school there, TC Robertson, that has access to water. So they'll be hosting some of the games, and we will be hosting some of the games. I'm really proud, again, of our community and our schools for stepping up and offering. Coach Cash went to an athletic director's meeting on Saturday, and a lot of this has to do with his offering to provide staff and support so they can run doubleheader football games. Now, that said, you might have to pay twice. So because one game is ours and the other game belongs to some other folks, we just happen to hold the field. They're going to be sending us some support along the way. It is one of those things where I do want folks to know that they will be there will be separate fees for the games and different things like that. So just a heads up on that. I'm really excited about that. This is a very tentative schedule when it comes past Friday. We feel really confident that this is what it'll be up through Friday. But beyond that, as water gets turned on in Asheville, I'm sure they'd love to host their own games. And I'll be honest with you, I'm sure our staff would be happy to share and let them host their own games. So we're just excited about this. To be honest with you, one of the most exciting things in this is our seniors are going to have an opportunity to have that senior night that we all had hoped that they would have. Our homecoming court will have an opportunity to do that on November the 1st. I will tell you, they're not trying to do the parade this year. There's just a few things that they felt like they were going to have to scale back, and that was the one thing that they wanted to scale back on. But they will still have the homecoming court, and they will also have the Spirit Week at the high school. So we're really excited about that and encouraged by where we stand. All right. Now, storm damage. I'm going to start out with our the school that was damaged the most, and I have photos for you here shortly. There was 3 feet of storm water on the outside of Old Fort Elementary School, and there's a slide here in just a few minutes. We'll review that. There was roughly 6 to 8 inches in the interior. At the very front of the building, there were some spaces where it was knee deep until it got through. Once it got opened and in through the doors, it actually dropped to about 6 to 8 inches. Items lost: classroom floors, gym floors. The base of cabinets, we were encouraged to learn that some of the cabinets were not as damaged. For visual, this cabinet that you guys are sitting at doesn't have a base on it. It's sitting all the way onto the ground. But like many kitchen cabinets do, there's a kick plate or a place where you can kind of put your feet under. Our cabinets had those bases. In many of the rooms, they did not lose their cabinets because they were on the opposite sides of the room. They ended up losing the base around it, which is great. And they pulled those bases out, and they'll be able to keep some of the cabinetry, which I was encouraged by that. That doesn't mean it's a whole lot faster, but that is one thing that certainly we were excited about. We lost doors. We lost carpet in the library. All interior doors, drywall, and insulation has been removed, and up to 2 feet of drywall was removed in the office. So they go just above where the water line was, roughly 18 inches, and then they pulled out all the insulation. So they'll replace that and put it right back in. Unfortunately, the main electrical cabinet and generator, this was outside of the building. This was the only mechanical type issues were damaged, and there was roughly 24 inches of water in that room. You can see, and when I go through the photos, that some of that was elevated, but some of it still took water. Part of that too is many of those wires go under and through. So they'll be looking at those. They do use like a glue type substance to lock those in place, but I'm sure that water penetrated that. There's no way around it. So they'll be checking those. Right now, heat and dehumidifiers are on the lower level, while AC is running upstairs. The media center is drying books, and they're using a unit in there. Most of the books were not damaged, but there was some mold and mildew that happened pretty quick. Exterior, they're removing the silt and sand from the gutters and drains and pushing the driveways for the entrance. And we also will have issues with some of the HVACs that were internal, as well as fire hydrant, not fire hydrant, but fire system that took some damage. We have not received an update on the time of the project from the Department of Insurance, and we've not received any official reports. So everything tonight that I'm showing you is just our account of where we are. And also want to let the board know that on Wednesday, if you guys are available, we will be happy to have you tour the building if you're able to get there on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. I know we had several folks who were asking if we could do that. I tried to go around to lunchtime as best I could to give everybody an opportunity. And just to be honest with you, if you can't make that time and you'd like to go, I will arrange an individual time for you to go. I'll do my best to get everybody out there. All right. As part of the insurance in the restoration company, they will handle the gym floor as part of the contract, while the controls, the HVAC, and some of the other items will require us to contract the work. That's one of those that we haven't got all the particulars worked out. It's definitely something we're going to need to talk with you about. But I want to remind you all, when you moved into Old Fort, and I only remember this because I had the opportunity to move into a new school one time as well. But getting that climate right, if you'll remember the controls, it's hot, it's cold, and getting all those HVAC units in good working order, that is something that we need to have tight control of. So to have a company that's external from us, just coming in and repairing the stuff, they were really good about taking it out, taking it apart. But I would like to have our folks really be the group who handles that piece. And of course, that's one of those that we can talk more about. We haven't gotten deep into any of those contracts at this point. The restoration company certainly can handle some of that, but the issue again being the control issue. And I think, when Mr. Trinks and I had that conversation, I do believe that he's spot on with that assessment, in the fact that these are not just like your homes that you can just click a switch. There's a whole lot of technologies that's behind that piece. Also the electrical piece, again, it would be nice to have our folks handling some of that. So we're still in the early stages of some of that. And that's the other reason that I wanted Mr. Trinks to be able to be out there with us at 1 o'clock on Wednesday, so we could kind of have you could ask him some of those questions as well, and he can inform you of what's going on.
So am I understanding this correctly?
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about, we have restoration groups that are coming in that will handle the gym floor. HVAC will contract that out, but then we're gonna ask our maintenance department.
No, ma'am.
Okay, that's
No.
where I was,
No, ma'am.
I
It won't.
wanted to
It's not our
clarify that.
It's not our maintenance department.
when you say our people,
No,
who are our
it'll be
people?
it'll be people that we contract with. The same people who we contracted with initially would be my recommendation on getting the building pieces done
Okay.
with Mr. Trinks. Not our people.
Okay, that, I was confused
Correct.
on that, because they are so swamped anyway,
Mm-mm.
and
No.
that's gonna slow the progress down
Correct.
of getting those people back at the
Yeah,
school.
no, not our people. This was,
Okay.
it's contracted
Anybody
work.
else misunderstand that? Okay.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
All right,
appreciate
good.
y'all, I appreciate
Okay.
that clarification, absolutely.
So
And
the,
then, I'm sorry,
Go
one
ahead,
more
you're good,
quick
you're good.
question. So a timeline, until we hear back from the insurance company, we're sort of on their schedule,
Yes, ma'am.
of when,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it would be really premature for me to say anything
right,
until we have that assessment of damage. Everything that I'm going to show you tonight is just visually looking at it. But Mr. Trinks will tell you that as soon as we put some of those things back into place and we turn the power on, we're going to find out that we have possibly more damage in some of those places. Again, why I don't want it to just be the restoration company comes in, turns the power on and says, "You're good, see you later." We want it to be one of those that it's an ongoing process.
so the original installers, the subcontractors when the building was built is who you're talking about. So our HVA crew that initially installed the new pieces will be the ones that we will.
The group
Contact.
that we use who already handles our controls in those buildings is who you want to be
Yes,
looking
okay.
at those.
Okay.
Yep.
So the restoration includes what I would call a sanitizing
Yes.
of the interior?
Yes, sir. And it's a mold and mildew mitigation, and they've already done the mud out phase of it. They've already taken all the waters out, all the floor is already out. They had the floor out right away. For example, in the gym area, that floor had already buckled. I mean, just from the water that was in it, you could already see the bottom of our doors within. I was there on Monday following the storm, and our doors had already expanded at the bottom, and the gym floor had already buckled. So I mean, it's obvious that you're not going to dry that out. So those things they had to pull them out. So when it comes to the next phase of this is to get the mold mitigation piece taken care of and make sure that we have a stable environment before we come back in with the flooring. And as you know, with wood flooring, there needs to be a climate. It needs to be the correct climate in order to do that. So while they're working on getting the climate correct, we'll have the gym floor installed. That'll be part of that will be one of the things that they will handle. The question becomes, do we want the restoration company to handle the LVT flooring, or is that something we can use the folks who initially put it in again, or the folks that we've been using routinely, or is that something we need to bid out? So these are all going to be questions that come up to the board, but just kind of giving you an idea where we are right now. But to answer your question, Ms. Silver, no, this isn't work that our guys are doing. What our guys are doing is clearing drains, because right now, if we were to have, thank goodness it's not raining, but if we were to have rain, with all the drains plugged up, more water would go back into the school, because right now with where they've cleared the driveway and everything, there's not a good channel. The water wouldn't flow because there's so much mud that's still elevated in the backyard and different places. The drainage is poor right now. It's in poor condition. So our guys are working on the initial, just getting it out of the way, the dirty, so that we can make sure that we save any issues from happening until we can get the professional crews out there.
On that same note, and I know they're swamped, while they're doing that, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea. Some of the spots that we typically don't go, like Marion Elementary's boiler rooms, that each access doors in each classroom, have them just walk through that and check that, because something may pop up with the mold and mildew that we're hardly ever down there.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
So it's interesting that you said that, because we had a company that showed up to do some work on, and really not do some work, but to do damage assessments on all of our buildings. Well, unfortunately, they didn't notify me, and I sent them an email that said, please don't ever come back to our school, and I CC'd Sheriff Buchanan on that. Well, 2 days later, I got the Department of Insurance who had emailed me back and said, hey, these are our guys. And I said, great. Can you make sure you let us know before they show up? So good job to my principals for not letting them in the building, and I appreciated the support from the Sheriff's Department. But, you know, I say that to say during this process, folks, we have had people who have shown up with their cards stuck in our face, trying to generate business that we didn't ask for. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you another one, and I'm not going to say which company, but Mr. Trinks and I did our initial walkthrough on Monday of the facility with a company that we thought was the group that we had signed the contract with. We got outside and realized that it was a different company because the company that we had signed the contract was just a little late. They were there. So that's the kind of thing that we're dealing with right now with, and I say that to the community in general. There's been a lot of issues with folks trying to scam. So I have cautioned our principals to the point that nobody's getting in the building, any of our buildings, unless Mr. Trinks knows about it or I know about it. And you know, to the point that the Department of Insurance, you know, made that comment back to me, and it was well received. I mean, it was just one of those that if we don't know, we don't want them in our buildings. And I think they didn't realize that we were back in school at the time too. So we want to protect our kids and make sure that things are safe. But we had folks trying to crawl on our roofs and different things. But they're going to assess all of our properties because that's what they need to do in this point. So, all right.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Who's paying for all this?
Who's paying for all of
this?
all of this?
How much do we anticipate that the school system, the county, that we're going to end up having to?
Yeah.
I mean, flood insurance.
Flood insurance is a great thing. Right now, and Miss Rampy's not here with us tonight to talk specific numbers, but our deductible, from my understanding, on the insurance is roughly $50,000. So there'll be some. The insurance should begin kicking in at that point. Anything beyond that, we will have to have some conversations with our FEMA reps and with the county and see where we stand. There's so many moving parts to this that's the one piece I don't have the answer for. Again, when we were talking, and Mr. English made a point of it tonight, the place that I am most concerned about is what happens with the county's funding, because you're talking about an economic downturn, tax-based, and that's how we're funded. That's how our local law enforcement's funded, and everything else, so on and so on. So again, I'm more down the road. I know that there's some things that we're going to be working through, and it's not going to be easy by any means. But down the road, I do feel like that McDowell County, as well as the schools, is going to need a shot in the arm of support from the state. And that's one of those that, you know, this is something that, you know, we can do a lot of this work on Main Street. You guys hear me talk about that a whole lot. This is one of those times when we're going to need some support on Jones Street. And it's an opportunity to ask our legislators to truly consider dipping into that rainy day fund that they've talked about, $4 billion rainy day fund. This is a prime example of a county that will need some support. And I don't just say that as the county schools. I think there's an opportunity there for county as a whole. But you know, it's one of those that just to get over the hurdle of what the funding situation is going to look like next year. But as far as our buildings are concerned, I do feel like those are things that we'll navigate through insurance and then again through FEMA. We're certainly going to be that we will incur some costs. There's no way around it. But we hope to recoup that over the years. When you're talking about working with FEMA, that's not just a quick process.
Can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
And if it's not the appropriate time, just tell me that it's not the right time. In terms of financial things, I know you spent some time with the Smart Start people at Old Fort trying to get diapers and those kinds of things. So thankful for the donations from so many churches. Watch today is, as I know different people have been going in and out, going to Walmart, getting stuff, that did not come in as donations necessarily, but things that they needed in classrooms. And it seems like, they started school up in August and they're starting school up again. I know that Old Fort Elementary is depleting some of their budget, as well as Smart Start is deleting some of their budget. Some of the donations that are coming into McDowell County Schools, will those be diverted back into Old Fort's budget? On the McDowell Cares website, where there's the place for McDowell County Schools. I know there are a lot of people that have left here that want to donate back, people that have never even lived here that want to donate, but some of them are saying that I would like this to specifically go to Old Fort Elementary.
Sure.
How, because I know somebody I talked to, I might have been Crystal, I can't remember, but they said if somebody wants to donate, they could just write a check, and was that me and you? You and I. Ooh, that's terrible grammar, you and I. They could write on the memo of the check for Old Fort Elementary if they sent it to McDowell County Schools Endowment Fund. But there is also a generation of people that don't really ever write checks. And so I've had people in the community say, I want this to go directly to when Old Fort Elementary goes back in session, or to replenish some things that don't come in necessarily as donations.
Sure. I mean, there's two ways. As a system as a whole, we've been affected.
Yes.
So I think it's important that we keep a global perspective as
Yes.
best we can. Also, I say that to say that I'm very proud of the donations that have came in from all over the country.
Yes.
And we're fortunate to have those. At this point, there are 3 warehouses full of donations for the county. There are numerous donations that have came in and continue to come in specifically for Old Fort. There are items at this point, and you never, what is the old saying? You never look a gift horse in the mouth, right? So I mean, but we're having to be really, really honest with folks to say that we can only house so much stuff. So with that said, the endowment is an opportunity, as well as on the McDowellCares.org website, there's a tab specifically for McDowell County Schools in that website. So I've been using that website as a way to generate some thoughts there as well, and some potential donations. Then I can go back to the piece where we were talking about funding in January and February, and we're talking about for the upcoming school year. I mean, folks, we're 85% teacher-based, 85% employee-based. So at that point, anything that would help offset some of that cost is important too. So to answer your question, we're going to take care of Old Fort. I'm going to make sure that they're not out anything that they shouldn't be from their budgets. Along the way, I know that we have already set up to make sure that we've compensated anybody who's purchased anything along the way. Yep. So we will certainly take care of them, and I'd like to say that we would maintain their level of funding where that doesn't look like they dip below that. And I think that would be the easiest way to say that, because what I also don't want to do is forget about some of the other schools and the issues that they're having as well. So, good question. All right, I'll continue on with the damage assessment. We lost ridge caps at North Cove. We've replaced them with ones that don't match but we wanted to ensure that the water didn't get into the building. The fence around the perimeter of the school is significantly damaged. The creek area really demolished portions of it, and we also had all the trees up on the top of that hill, those beautiful oak trees. Most of them are gone. The building that's the historic building up there, the roof was blown off of it. The interesting thing about North Cove is the ceiling tiles were pulled up. So I don't know what kind of pressure did that, but the trees look like toothpicks up there, and the ceiling tiles are pulled up. I'm not a meteorologist, but that could indicate something. But there's going to be a lot of cleanup and most of that will come from we've had some volunteers that have asked if they could support us along the way, and we'll certainly be sending a lot of volunteers up there, because that's a lot of manpower to get that school cleaned up. At Eastfield, there were pine trees fell, and they have been cleaned up. Some of the easier ones that we could get to, we cleaned up. Marion Elementary, there were pine trees down on the playground, dumpster in the lower ball field. There is significant damage to the playground, and that's going to take repairs and possibly replacement. West Marion, there are pine trees down on the sewer system and roadway. Most of that has been cleaned up. Glenwood Elementary, trees down on the outer ball field. Nebo Elementary, trees down on the lower ball field. McDowell High School, there was a tree or two that fell on the softball fence and batting cages. The fence will need to be replaced in that area. East Middle Schools, there were trees that were blown down on the lower bank of the property. And on the Sugar Hill Head Start, a section of the guttering was torn off and damaged on the shingles. And that concludes my report. I'm going to go to the pictures now, Garrett, if you can help go through those. All right, in this first photo, if you'll see just below the handle, the line that's on the door, this is the exterior building there at Old Fort. That is the line of where the water was outside the building. And remember, the school is the highest point. I would also just remind you that the house that's just below that school, that the water was up to about this height, just almost to the top of the door. So that kind of gives you a reference of the school was built up higher. And of course, you guys did a great job. You did build that outside of the 100-year floodplain. And I don't think any of us foresaw that amount of water coming in here at all. Okay, Garrett. That's inside the gym floor. You can see the water still standing on the floor and the mud. And if you look at the bottom of that picture, you can see where the wood has already started to buckle. And this is on Monday, so a lot of the water had already kind of dropped down inside of there, or had worked its way out. So you're starting to see dried mud. Okay. This is exterior, just some of the mud. It looks more like snow, just to be completely honest with you. But that's pretty much what everything on the inside looked like. It's anywhere from 6 to 8 inches of mud is what we were walking through. Okay. Here's some of the gutter repairs on the outside. This is what I was talking about. Our maintenance crews were working to get some of that ready in case we had any more rain. And you can see again, it looks like they're removing snow. I mean, and it's all silt and mud. Okay, Garrett. This is the electrical room, and what I want you to notice in here, look up the block wall, and you'll notice behind the electrical box there. So that did get into that mechanical box on that you can see there. So those will need some significant repairs. And that's an exterior door, so it's not inside the building, but it's just a little storage area that's outside. It's on the back side of the school, and there's a generator that's out there as well. Okay, Garrett. Just showing the mud, and obviously you can see the things that are going down into the floor. There'll have to be some mitigation done there on some of the wiring. Okay. This is after they had ripped out a gym floor, it looks like. These are the dehumidifying units that were outside. Okay. This is the company who Department of Insurance put us in touch with, and folks, they're doing a great job. They've been out there every day and just really working at it. They one of the conversations that we had with them was, at the end of this, the murals, the paintings that we had on our walls, those are special to our teachers. I would like for you to, do your best to try to take care of them, and they assured us that they were going to do their absolute best to care for our stuff. Okay? This is, remember I was talking about some of the cabinets. There's a base on the bottom of that. That is a cabinet that will actually be able to salvage. You can see parts of that floor that didn't get any water. Which is interesting, and different places got more than other places, but they're going room by room. Obviously, all that floor would have to get replaced. The cabinet itself will come out, but it will only be the base that needs to get replaced there, and then the floors. This is a classroom You can see why we were able to salvage and keep the furniture. It's all metal. So once they got the mud out, the furniture cleaned, and they used mold mitigation technologies on the furniture. That was the furniture then that the National Guard picked up and took for us over to PG. So we were able to salvage our furniture as well as our computers, made it out of there safely. This is the media center, and that's before they got the, or it looks like just after they'd gotten the carpet removed out of there. So now what they've got set up in there, and what you'll see when you go back on Wednesday, is they have all the books and the shelves under basically a tent, and they're doing dehumidification on those and mold mitigation. This is where I told Miss Ward she must be living right, because in the principal's office was the only place in the whole building that really didn't have any damage. It was really ironic that it was like that. But you can see there were spots there where no water, no mud. All right, Garrett. This car doesn't belong there. That was just what it looked like after the storm. There were cars, numerous cars that were in the parking lot. It looks like somebody parked it in there perfectly. That wasn't the case. That car got moved in there, and I'm just thankful that it didn't hit any of the bricks or any of the rocks or anything in the front. All right. All right. All right. So we go from where the water was. Well, first of all, any questions or anything y'all want to see again in those photos on Old Fort?
Is there any debris in Mill Creek that runs behind the school now, or has that been removed?
It has not been removed at this point. Yes, there's definitely debris that's there in Mill Creek. That whole yard at this point is knee-deep mud.
Oh.
So getting from there to Mill Creek is not an area that they focused on the drainage areas up in the front. So that'll all have to be part of the restoration work as well as and I left it off, and you'll see it if you guys can go on Wednesday. We lost a Connex box out there with mowers, weed eaters, and all that stuff. We also obviously lost all 3 of our buses, and then the other piece was the playground took significant damage out there. Yeah. So if we don't have any further questions on Old Fort, I'm going to kind of walk you through the space at Pleasant Gardens. And some of this you may have seen on Facebook. We wanted to reassure the parents that we were doing everything we could to find adequate space for their students. So here's a classroom at PG, and we'll just kind of flip through these, Garrett. Again, another classroom that was quickly set up. And these photos were on Thursday. So I can tell you when you went back today, there are pictures on the walls. There are things that make it look even more like school. This is inside the multi-purpose room. That room has been divided in half, and they're doing their specials in there. And there's the other side. They're doing some PE classes in there. You can see he's got the 4 square. They were having a ball in there this morning. 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade kids were. That's where they started their day this morning. You can see in the library they have been incredibly creative, and that is the library area is primarily a 2nd grade group, and they're going to be doing a lot of Montessori style type work, and they have been talking about how they could do that. But you'll see sites and centers set up for kids' individual learning, and we'll just keep flipping. There's a lot of spaces in there for them. All right, and then of course they've got. The tables set up, their TVs are set up, individual work, and there was a STEM lab, which I thought was probably the coolest classroom. Some of the kids will really be pumped. It's this one. I really like this space, and I think the kids are going to love it. They're going to be in that space tomorrow, so I'm excited about that one. that was a STEM lab, and PG is kind of at this point sharing that out. Here's a teacher ready to go, and that was getting those posters up and all the other stuff up, and they were tired, and it was a lot of work, but we're there. Another classroom, and again, that's the furniture from Old Fort. This is more of a resource setting, so they've got a great space in there to do some individual work and small groups. This is half of one of the classrooms on the lower level, and if you remember, we just replaced this floor. So we have all new floor covering down there. There was fresh paint that was just put on those walls. The air filters and all that was added as well. So we're in good shape there. This is the other side of the room. I thought those were cool. Those are their chairs from Old Fort. A lot of the stuff that you're seeing was what we had help from the National Guard moving. Again, another space. Another classroom. This is in the downstairs area. This is the classroom closest to the highway, on the lower end, closest to the tennis courts looking out. Just a good space. Another classroom here. Some of the pre-K classrooms here. Another one. And we're back to the beginning. All right. The last thing I want to share with you guys tonight, there's two things. One, I'd like to show the high school locker room. Yes, I'm sorry.
Before we move on, I'm sorry, I want to make sure that in case anyone's listening tonight, to clear up the schedule for tomorrow, you said kindergarten and second grade.
Kindergarten.
You meant to say kindergarten through second grade, so first grade is also.
Yes, sir. Good point. Kindergarten through second grade.
Okay.
And our Smart Start students will also. Their Smart Start students came back, and they're going to continue to stay. They're in their nursery. They're good. Tomorrow will be K2 only for Old Fort. Wednesday will be everybody.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So these are the picture of the lockers room. This was sent in by Coach Franklin, and he wanted me to express how happy he was with this and how the space turned out. So he just wanted to show you. The lockers look great. The locker room itself just completely refurbed, and he was really loving that rug. He ordered a McDowell Titans rug, and he was pretty pumped about it. So this is their team room. We do have some TVs to go in there for them. That's the last piece. Mr. Berryhill's been a little busy trying to set up Starlinks all over the county, and I don't even know what all he's been doing, but a lot. So at some point we'll get those TVs hung up for him. So, and folks, the last thing I want to share with you tonight before you hit play on that video, Garrett, give me just a second. One of the things that I've been really pleased to say is the partnerships going on in the county during this time have been just incredible. So we were contacted by the Baxter Company about helping them get their employees to and from work. And the main reason is because, as you saw at the Old Fort site, that knee-deep mud that I was talking about, that's what their parking lot looked like. And they're also using their parking area and trying to get that. They've got to have space around those buildings to be able to maneuver. So they have created a parking area at Sandy Andrews Park. And we entered into a contract with them where our bus drivers can drive. Unfortunately, I can't just turn them the keys over. They have to be an employee of ours in order to drive. But we're using, just like we would with the Bigfoot Festival and other places, we're using our activity buses to help transport the Baxter's workers. This was the first day that they showed up for work, and some of them look a little tired, but I think most of them were pretty happy. But I did want to share that video because I'm proud of that. I think it's a great partnership, and it just shows the compassion to really want to get this community standing back up. So Garrett, if you will, play that. Roughly 4 activity buses, 200 employees.
Good morning, guys.
5:30.
Hey, girl, how are you?
And that's our bus drivers.
Thanks.
See their
Oh,
friends.
thank you. Hey, how are you? Oh, I wasn't counting, Lacey. I forgot to count. Morning, guys. Good morning, guys. Good morning. Good morning.
Just a quick video. You know, it's one of those. It kind of gives me cold chills. I know those people wanted to be at work. That was one of the few ways we could get them there, and our drivers doing what they do, out there greeting, whether it's adults or kids or whoever it is, just greeting them. It's 5:30 in the morning. Some of them need a cup of coffee, and I think if she had it, she would brew it and hand it to them. So I was very encouraged by that, and just again, blown away by the support that I've seen in this community.
How many are you transporting right now?
202 shifts a day, so 400.
400.
Yeah, there's a 12. It's a 12-hour shift, and they've moved to 5:30 and 5:30, I think. So we take them in the morning, we pick them up at 5:30 in the afternoon, we pick them back up. So we're transporting both to and from, and it's our staff who said, yeah, I can use the money, and I'm happy to drive. So we've got some folks that are willing to help us out. Yep.
Great.
All right. Any questions?
Anything else for Dr. Grit? All right then, sir. Just want to commend our superintendent and our staff on all the connections they've made and how folks can pull together in adversity. And not to underestimate the abilities of our administrative team, I'd like to ask Ms. Hamby if she could tell us what's going on curriculum and education-wise.
Oh, it's my favorite topic, Mr. English. You know it is.
I know.
So, Chairman English, members of the board, thank you for allowing me to share tonight and talk about the areas that I'm most passionate about, and that is kids and curriculum. So, wanted to kind of give you an update this evening on where we are with Old Fort and what we have put in place for them. Some of the things I mentioned to you at our work session last Monday, but I know our community was not part of that, and so I wanted to come back and kind of share where we are and the things that we've put in place. And so, as you've already heard tonight, as Dr. Grit was sharing with you about the environment at Old Fort, you know, one thing is paper doesn't take too well to water. And so some of our materials may not be salvageable, and we don't have time to wait because our kids are back and they're eager and they're ready to learn. Listen, on Wednesday when they rolled back in, boy, was that a cup filler. I mean, to see how excited they were to be back with their friends and with their teachers, and they were hugging, and it was just a great day. But that's not what I'm up here to share about. But as far as our curriculum, we went ahead and we reached out to all of our companies, and man, they've really been good to us in this process. So we reached out to IMSC, which is the publishing company for our Orton Gillingham. And so at a minimum cost, we have been able to order and get ready to replace all of their OG manuals and their morphology manuals. And so those will be coming in any time now. Same thing with their Hegarty. We received a discount from the Hegarty as well as we replaced their manuals for that. Right now, of course, with Old Fort just coming back today they spent some time just sharing and talking and just working on meeting the needs of the students and listening, which is what we encourage for the first day back. And then, of course, tomorrow our K-1-2 kiddos come back, and so they will have much the same opportunities as to sit and share. And so hopefully some of our materials will be in when everyone is ready to learn on Wednesday. If not, they have worked out a great system at Pleasant Gardens, and man, they've been amazing. And I want to brag on Pleasant Gardens as well on how they can share their materials until the other materials get here. We've also reached out to Great Minds, which is our publishing company for Eureka, and they're going to replace the teachers' manuals for them. I mean, I cannot say enough good stuff. The one company that I'm waiting for is McGraw-Hill for our Wonders curriculum. I'm still waiting to hear back from them. But in the meantime, we are committed to not letting any moments pass without ensuring that they have the materials that they need for learning. And so for our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, we were able to purchase an online platform to help support the load of our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers. And that online learning platform is called Calvert. And that's C-A-L-V-E-R-T, Calvert, and that is by Edmentum. And so we have been working with them to get that put in place, and our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teachers will receive training tomorrow on that program. And wow, it is amazing, and the resources that are at their fingertips. It's also an adaptable program that will meet the kiddos where they are, as well as provide on grade level core content for them. And so we're super excited about that. Our K-1-2 teachers said, you know, we know where our kids are at. We want our materials, and so they wanted to continue with their IMSC, with their Hegarty. They worked hard to train in those things for reading, and then they have their math manuals and all that's coming in, and so that's the direction that they have met and talked about going. So we're just super excited about where the efforts that our teachers have put forth of bringing our classrooms together. They look fantastic. And I'm not just saying it. I know you got to see the pictures, but today it felt like home when each one of those kids came in today. And they were happy, they were smiling, and they were hugging. And you know, and now that they have that piece fulfilled, that socialization, they are also getting their breakfast and their lunch, and they were eager. And our child nutrition staff, I want to brag on them. There's so many people, and I'll start leaving people out, but our child nutrition staff was down serving breakfast this morning, and the kids were lined up, and they were getting it, and they were talking and chatting as they were getting ready to go into class. And so that piece is met, and then we'll be ready on Wednesday to meet their educational needs as well. So just thank you for your support. Thank you for what you're doing for us. And a big shout out to Old Fort and Pleasant Gardens on their partnership. We couldn't ask for better. Also want to talk a little bit tonight too, as we talked about the return to learn post Hurricane Helene. That sounds weird because we talked about return to learn post-COVID, and we don't want to say that word anymore. But post-Hurricane Helene, I wanted to talk a little bit about our attendance. That's been a big question that we have gotten is, how is your attendance? Well, guess what? It's been great. I mean, I just can't say enough about it. So on the October the 9th, our very first day back, what we saw is that we were in the high 80s and low 90s on the first day back. Of course, Old Fort was not in session. North Cove was a little bit below that. They were in the 70s. As you can imagine, their community was hit hard as well. And so not quite up in the 80s. But now, as we return back today, October the 14th, they were back at 91% attendance. And then we've been in the mid to high 90s for today. So, you know, I really think that that says a lot about our teachers, our students, and our families coming together, working together. The boots on the ground is important, checking on every kid and letting the families know, hey, we're here for you. Those relationships that we have built with our families are key in this. But we are so proud of our families and our students and our teachers for all the work that they have put forth post-Hurricane Helene.
Ms. Hamby, if I may chime in really briefly, just a reminder to the board, we're happy with our attendance, but we certainly recognize that we do have some students that are still dealing with hardships, and we're working individually with them. So it's one of those that, you know, particularly like in the North Cove area where we struggled to get the attendance on Wednesday and Thursday that we got today. A lot of that had to do with communication. We were still struggling with cell phone usage up there. I know Mr. English called me for the first time today, where we actually were able to get a signal back and forth. So I know that a lot of our parents weren't getting some of the messages that we were sending out. And even doing door to door and as much as you can, you're only going to do so good. So we know that we've still got some students in those positions, and we're working with them. So parents that are out there listening tonight, we certainly don't want you to think that your child's going to be penalized, but we also don't want the kids that can walk across the street from their front door to the school to think that we can stay at home either. So it's that balancing act for the school district, and I know our principals will handle those cases individually and take care of our families.
If I could just say something too. I personally just really wanted to shout out to the staff and the teachers and everybody pulling together. I mean, Mr. Peterson over at MAI, his text messages were fantastic, just keeping us updated on all the things. And knowing that, you know, my youngest boy, his best friend, his mom is a teacher over at West Marion Elementary School, and that the West Marion Elementary School teachers were going door to door, and, you know, they came to pick up my boy, and I was like, where are you headed? And they said, well, we've got a couple kids that we can't get a hold of, and so we're driving on up to their house. And there was the teacher and the assistant teacher or the TA, and like, just, that's amazing, right? That was the fact that everyone was like, we're just going to find these kids and make sure that everybody's okay. And then the communication that was going out to parents. And, you know, like I said, I need to text Mr. Peterson. If you could pass that along on my behalf, I appreciate that too. But the communication that we received as parents was, it was great. It was great and well done. You guys did a great job all the way across the board in making sure that parents were communicated with, and that about what to expect, what's coming, and then to know that literally teachers and TAs were getting into their cars and driving up driveways to find kids. Thank you. That was pretty awesome. Thanks.
I wanted to echo that just a little bit. I was thankful that Miss Ward and Miss Rayfield let me hang out today. Was glad to be able to be there, being the Old Fort rep, and you know, I'll be back a little bit tomorrow. I don't need to stay all day because for some reason I thought maybe they needed my help, and they didn't. But it was just a good opportunity just to be there. It was kind of funny. When the kids would come in, you definitely knew which ones were for the PG kids and which ones were the Old Fort kids. PG kids had it down. Old Fort's kids' eyes were about this big because they weren't exactly sure which way to go. And I would say, PG, Old Fort, and they'd say PG. I was like, you know what to do. Old Fort, see the boy with the red shorts. That's where you go. And then this one kid said, I don't know. And I was like, which school? And he was like, I don't know. I said, have you ever been here before? He said, yes. I said, then you're PG. So, it was way overwhelming. But just to echo that, first of all, Dr. Gritt, and to your executive team, how seamless this has been. And just to watch the news and see other school systems that had similar damage to us that aren't back yet, and to see that our school system got up and got our kids back in school, definitely a shout out to y'all. But I think I would just be remiss to just not brag on that Old Fort staff, 3 of whom I know were displaced from their homes. One teacher told me, I said, how's your day going? He said, well, I started at 6 this morning. I still don't have power or water, so I had to find something seemingly clean. And then I went down to First Baptist Old Fort to stand in line to get a shower before I got here. And I just think of that tenacity and that dedication, and just really, some of their cups are empty, but they filled them up to get there today to make sure that their kids were ready to roll. So proud of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want to say the same thing. As a coach, we always try to coach like our coaches coached us. And when I was in the weight room the other day, I spit out a saying that one of my old coaches said when I was talking to the players in the weight room, and it's, you have to break yourself down to build yourself stronger. And at that point, I thought about McDowell County and what we're going through and just the job that you guys are doing. We are already so much stronger. The central office, our superintendent, our kiddos, our parents, you can see it because we've come through something really tough. And you guys,
stronger than the storm.
there you are. So it brings you to tears thinking about it, but you're happy knowing that this county, this community, this school system is stronger than anyone could ever imagine. So, again, great job, Bob. It was the right decision. I saw a headline in the paper saying, looking at the smiles of the kids, it was the right decision to go back. So I commend you guys on that and not hesitating financially to look out after our kids you know, someone brought up the comment to me and said, hey, all that fuel that you guys use from the school bus system that went out, who's going to pay for that? I said, does it really matter when someone's life's on the line? Does it really matter when generators need to be there? Because we'll find a way. But I commend you for making that decision and going with it. So great job, all of you.
Ms. Hamby, last Monday evening when we had our special called meeting, I think it was Ms. Mumal that raised the concern that there were a number of students who are enrolled in McDowell County schools that may not presently be residing in McDowell County. Have we seen many of those folks come back, or do you know, or are there still quite a number of students that are displaced, say in FEMA temporary housing voucher, that living in a hotel room in Hickory, for example?
We do have some of that, sir. I don't have an exact number before me tonight, but we do have some.
It's
and
not a large number.
No, sir, I
Thank
would not say a
goodness.
large number. But they are with family. They may be staying on the outskirts in different locations. But we have made contact with each of those families. We kind of know what their needs are, and our principals are doing an outstanding job working with those families individually to meet the students' needs and listening to what we can do to best support them. And so we have some parents. I worked with a principal today that lives that's having to be out of town because no internet here, and that's what their job consists of, is being able to have internet access. And so working to support the kiddos with their parents. So yes, sir, we do have some. I don't think it's a large number, but we do have that situation here.
Anyone else? You have anything further?
Yes, I have one more thing.
Well, okay, we can't hardly wait.
So, as you know, Election Day is just around the corner. And for that, it does impact 4 of our schools here in McDowell County, as our schools are polling precincts for the Election Day. And that's East McDowell Middle School, Marion Elementary, Nebo, and North Cove. To maintain the safety of our students on this day and to open up our facilities for the election process, we have chosen to do a remote learning day for these schools. So effective tomorrow, the team, our learning division and our executive committee has worked together to put together a remote learning plan, and this will be shared out with all of our principals tomorrow. We wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to share this with you tonight and then share it out tomorrow. So we want to make sure that we communicate with all of our families, just like we've been communicating through this process, through Parent Link, Class Dojos, our school website, and our school media, to make sure that the families that are impacted by this has information so that they know that their students will not be in school that day, but also for our schools that are not a polling precinct to know that we are in session on that day. So it's not a day for all. We will also, as far as our scheduling, we will work within our regular school hours with our staff and also work and be available to our students, whether that be through a virtual option or making sure that there's hard copy formats for those that don't have access to internet, as we know that this still may be an issue come the election time. And so we want to make sure that we're able to meet all the students' needs the best that we can. Also, too, our teachers will be available if there are questions through emails or through our online learning platforms if needed during that day. We have a letter ready to go home that we will share out with our principals, that we would get this information out as soon as possible. And then also we have social media posts already created if schools choose to use these. And then we also have some sample lessons and activities of what this could look like if schools so choose to use them. So we wanted to just remind the board once again that this is a remote learning day for 4 of our schools, and then of course answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. All right. Anything for Ms. Hamby?
Thanks for the job.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. As a introduction to our report from teacher representative, Mr. Hill. Happened across something today that I thought you folks needed to hear. Garrett, are we queued up? Yeah. Believe it or not, McDowell County Schools made national news today. We're ready.
And students in Western North Carolina have been out of school for more than 2 weeks as their communities recover from Helene. In McDowell County, at the eastern base of the Blue Ridge Mountains, students whose elementary school was severely flooded are returning to class today. The Schlemmer reports on efforts there to bring students back as quickly as possible.
The last thing Superintendent Tracy Gritt did the day before the storm was visit Old Fort Elementary. He stood outside where it overlooks Mill Creek. The school was built only 5 years ago on a berm just beyond the 100-year floodplain.
I thought we're gonna be all right. There's no way that's gonna get in our school, but man, was I wrong.
When stormwater rushed down the ridge, that little mountain creek swelled. It surrounded the building and swept a school bus off the parking lot.
And then it carried it over Interstate I-40, and it ended up about a mile down the road, and it was peeled open like a soda can.
Ankle-deep water consumed the school's first floor. A layer of muck had to be cleared out. Last week, the National Guard carried out salvageable furniture. Workers in hazmat suits stripped out carpet. Mold mitigation and mechanical repairs will take longer.
Good to see you again.
Gritt's been stopping by the school often.
Does this look like we could put this school back in 2 weeks? You're talking months of restoration.
But today, students from Old Fort Elementary are returning, combining with classes at another elementary school. With many mountain roads still closed, the district is sending buses out as far as they can go. Gritt says some students are traveling on four-wheelers to get to buses.
In a rural area, they're having to come down hollers and hills and creek sides and different places.
Old Fort's teachers, staff, and roughly 300 students are moving into Pleasant Gardens Elementary, which reopened last week. Students in Kelly Phillips' kindergarten class shared what they did while they were out of school.
I went to check on my family, and a tree fell on our chicken coop, but our chickens are okay though. I went to my nana's, and I found 2 Army helicopters. A tree almost fell on our neighbor's house. I played, worked on the fence, know how to drill now.
Meanwhile, school staff have been working nonstop. For a while, the school district had the only diesel fuel in the county. Superintendent Gritt filled up emergency vehicles. Staff salvaged food from school fridges and brought it to shelters. Teachers helped hand out supplies. First grade teacher Rhonda Tipper's husband is the pastor of a church that opened up as a distribution center.
Everybody's been so busy this whole time because when you start thinking about it, you get all up in your head and all up in your feelings, and you just got to keep moving. You just got to keep moving forward.
This week, she's moving from the flooded Old Fort Elementary to Pleasant Gardens Elementary.
It does feel fast, but, teachers are known for getting things done.
Her fellow first grade teacher, Stephanie Rourke, will combine classes with others to fit in the new school.
The majority of the class is going to be their kids. Mine's a small portion of each class, and they're willing to let me step in and teach so that I can have a part.
It's part of how they're making it work. Superintendent Gritt says it was possible to open schools because residents who own chainsaws and backhoes started clearing roads even before aid arrived, and much of the county has running water by now. He says schools are part of that local infrastructure too.
Oh, we are infrastructure. I feel like we really are. I mean, the work that's going on and how that holds the community together is critical.
The school district is the second largest employer in the county. Schools offer kids a safe place and a hot meal. And Gritt says he's worried about everybody's mental health. That's why reopening was imperative.
Our schools are kind of the heartbeat of the community, and we knew that when we stood our schools back up, that it would help our community stand up.
On the opposite side of the mountain is Buncombe County, where water and power are still out, and schools are expected to remain closed all month. Liz Schlemmer, North Carolina Public Radio, WUNC.
I thought you folks might enjoy hearing that, especially as it gives you a sense of the dedication and the lengths that our staff goes to for their students. They consider them their family. And Mr. Hill, I'm sure, feels that his students are as well. So, Mr. Hill, we'll turn the floor to you.
Thank you very much. It will come as no surprise to anyone that my opportunities to put together a very formal and detailed report this week were limited. So I'm going to speak extemporaneously and from the heart. I shall attempt to be succinct, but my heart is full. First of all, I'd like to thank the administration here at the district office and from McDowell High School. And I would say about all of this that I've only really been able to communicate with McDowell High School teachers and a few at West, courtesy of my sister. We were all very grateful for the very timely and clear and encouraging communication that we got from the district office from Dr. Gritt and Ms. Dowdle, Ms. Smith, and it was very, very, it was nice to know that we were being considered and we were reminded on all occasions that our safety was paramount. And that meant quite a bit to all of us, I know. I would also like to, just from a personal point of view, note that I was reminded just how far our community stretches throughout this crisis. We think of ourselves as a county, but there are so many people who live in nearby counties, who work here, who are as dedicated to this community in their professional lives as they are to their own communities in their personal lives. And you know, we have people who live in Swannanoa and Spruce Pine and even further away, and yet they have made, despite the fact that their areas were probably harder hit than much of McDowell County, really did make, I would say, heroic efforts to be here for the reopening and to be part of our schools. Miss Bennett, for example, comes to mind. You know, she lives in Spruce Pine, and you know, but never was she flagging in her dedication to our school and to making sure that we were up and running. And we'll have proof of that in just a moment in video form. I'd like to speak to the character of the students. It's in time of crisis that character is revealed for young and old alike. And I have to say that watching the students at McDowell High respond to this has been really quite compelling. In my senior English classes, we are currently studying Aristotle's golden mean, the midway point between extremes. Rather than being reckless, for example, or cowardly, one should find courage in the face of fear. That is the golden mean. And I think that discussing the golden mean with my students in light of this recent crisis has really both given them the opportunity to think about what constitutes virtuous behavior. Sometimes the golden mean is knowing when to give help and when to be willing to receive it. And I will say that, okay, let's be frank here. We mountain people, and I know that some of the people from Spruce Pine and Yancey County would tell us we're not mountain people, but we are. We're sometimes a little slow to ask for help when we need it, and sometimes a little quick to refuse help when we need it. I've witnessed it a couple of times when I was out and about in the community. But I'd say that by and large, most people have walked that golden mean. They have been willing to give help when they can and to ask for it when they need it, and that's certainly been the case with our students. It's been quite astonishing, actually. Ms. Mumma asked me at the beginning, before the meeting, how are the kids? And I said, you know, they're okay. They really are. At the high school, they're okay. I can't speak for everyone, but at the high school, they're okay. They have been very, very quick to help one another out and to express their gratitude, which I think is a great testament to their character. I don't think that most people necessarily crave public expressions of gratitude, but our students have been quick to give them. And I would like to say to to the adults in the lives of our students who take care of them, to the parents out there, and I use that term very broadly, always. You done good, if I may. All right? The behavior of the students during this time has been it's been extraordinarily edifying. And I would like to thank everyone here and out there for doing such a great job with the kids that they say we can only work with the kids we've been sent. You know, the parents send us the best kids they've got. Well, our kids are pretty darn good, and I'd like to congratulate all the parents out there for that. Now, as a testament to their character, we're going to watch a video that we made at McDowell High School on Friday. We gathered in the gym at 1:30, and Ms. Bennett gave us instructions on what we were doing, and then we shot this video to show our gratitude and I hope our strength to the community. I'm not sure that you can see the banners that we're holding up very clearly, but each banner is different. It says something, it identifies a group of people to whom we are expressing gratitude. My class's banner, for example, said, schools in other counties, all right? I'm sure there was a banner that said churches and so on and so forth, all right? We named as many institutions and organizations and groups of people that we could to express our gratitude to those people. Now, if in doubt about the sincerity of this, let me make clear. We did this in one take, all right? Any educator who's ever tried to organize a student body to do anything in one take will understand the significance of that. Any parent who's tried to organize a family photo will understand the significance of getting the entire student body of McDowell High School to make this lovely video one take. Karen Carpenter recorded Superstar in one take, and we did this in one take.
Hello, I'm Laura Bennett, principal of McDowell High School in Marion, North Carolina. Our school wanted to find a way to say thank you and express our gratitude and appreciation to all who have come together to show love for our community and support for our school. Unfortunately today, many of our students and staff are not with us as they are still navigating the effects of Hurricane Helene. We've lost loved ones, we've lost homes, we've lost our stability, but together we are still tight and strong. McDowell High School is more than just a school. We're a family, and together, along with your help, we're going to get through this. McDowell High School is forever grateful, and from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you.
Questions?
Oh, gosh.
I want to make a comment, though, Dr. Britt. In the North Carolina School Board Association meetings, they have what's great about public schools. And it's too bad you can't incorporate that one in this year's. And if Terry, I would try to get that down there for the rest of the School Boards Association to see.
I'll start working on that tomorrow. Good suggestion.
Thank you.
Mr. Hill, thank you for your remarks.
And thank you once again for all that you've done for us during this time. And I'm forever grateful to be a part of McDowell County Schools and McDowell County. It's wonderful. It's good to be home.
Yes, it is. Mr. Hill, do you realize that you're the only speaker this evening that garnered a round of applause?
I think there were others who deserved it.
Okay. Item 9 on our agenda is correspondence. And Ms. Smith, do we have any correspondence? Do we have any requests to address the board, which is item 10? Okay, then, we'll move along to new business. This evening, our North Carolina School Board Association Annual Conference is in November, and we need to select 4 delegates and 1 alternate to represent our corporate opinion here on issues that may come before the association at their annual meeting. So let me ask first, how many folks are planning on attending this year's conference? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Good. Okay, would you folks be willing to serve as delegates? Is there one that would be willing to serve as an alternate?
I'll serve as an alternate.
Okay, all right. So, by acclamation, could we say then that Mr. Abernathy, Mr. Shuford, and Ms. Helms, and Mr. Suttles will serve as our delegates, and Mr. Frank will serve as our alternate? Okay? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make it.
Mr. Shuford makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Abernathy makes the second. Is there any discussion? If not, then, all in favor, right hand, and the motion carries. I'm planning on attending, but since I serve on the board of directors, I'm not eligible to be a delegate or an alternate. Okay, but thank you all. Again, that's Mr. Suttles, that's Mr. Abernathy, Mr. Shuford, Ms. Helms, and the alternate is Mr. Frank. Thank you all. So it's time for board reports, and Mr. Frank is our NJROTC rep and also chair of the Budget and Finance Committee. Anything that you need to make the board aware of this evening? Good.
First of all, I want to say budget and finance we won't cover tonight.
Okay.
Our star is night. But, you know, with all the doom and gloom that we've been through, there's always shining stars, as Mr. Hill indicated. And man, that was a very touching presentation, and I thank you personally. But Dr. Britt alluded to some things that NJROTC have been up to, and you talked about the golden meat there. Well, this hits a spot. But First Sergeant Mealy from the NJROTC sent me this, and it says, as is customary, we want to provide an update on our program thus far. The cadets have done extremely well given the circumstances. We performed with our best podium placing results ever at the Newton Conover Field Meet last month. With a meeting of over 10 JROTC programs, we placed 3rd in academics, which is quite a feat. And he said our PT orienteering team placed 3rd out of 21 teams during the RS Central Super Squad competition just before Hurricane Helene. And this is the part that's really touching, is during Hurricane Helene's relief efforts, our program alone has sourced over $30,000 of supplies to our cadets' families, school, and local community. We have also garnered physical donations over $10,000 for cadets' families that lost homes. These efforts were bolstered by over a week's worth of community service hours from instructors and cadets' families. This is still ongoing. This past weekend, and with only a few hours of practice due to Helene, our JROTC rifle team placed 2nd over 20 teams across the nation at the Montgomery Bell Academy rifle competition. Summer White placed 2nd, and Anthony Escalera placed 5th overall in the individual competition. This week we plan to host our own rifle match, and this weekend First Sergeant Mealy will be taking cadets to Washington, D.C. so our students can learn from the elite Marine Silent Drill Platoon and meet officials during a tour of the Pentagon. Thank you for your time, advocacy, and continued support. And I'm telling you, our NJRTC shine star. Thank you.
All right. Great. Great way to start the year. Mr. Suttles, Building and Grounds.
No, I just want to encourage the Building and Grounds Committee, if you will, look over this information. It's really great stuff to read there, you know, and I had told Dr. Gritt when we had the Zoom call and the other guys about should we do this today, should we not have the presentation, and my true feeling was I think, you know, even in this time we need to remember to look forward, look for the future. The darkness is here, but daylight's going to come. And, you know, you assess the damage, you clean up, you rebuild where necessary, and then you look to where to grow. So I think this information kind of gives us a light for the next 10 years on what's needed. So I would just encourage all the committee to look at that, brainstorm, come up with some ideas based on the research that we could come back to Dr. Gritt and the board and just talk about later on.
All right. Ms. Silver, Curriculum and Instruction and Head Start while you're at it.
No curriculum instruction. Ms. Hamby did a great job on that. Dr. Delaney is under the weather today, but she is available if anyone has questions about the Head Start selection criteria updates that are in our consent agenda. We'll be having our policy meeting next Monday.
Okay. All right. Under policy, Ms. Poupeau.
There's nothing to report right now.
Nothing to report at this time. Okay. Well, we'll keep moving then. Item 12 is approval of our consent agenda. And as you know, any item may be removed from the consent agenda with a majority vote of the board and discussed and voted on as a separate item. So is there anything on our consent agenda that you feel needs further discussion or clarification? I really don't want to sound like a bad guy, but I would appreciate it if we could have the facility usage request discussed and voted on separately, if that's agreeable with the rest of the board. So is there a motion to take action, discussion and action on that item separately from the consent agenda? Okay, Mr. Suttles makes the motion. Is there a second? Second. Ms. Mumal makes the second. Any further discussion? If not, then all in favor? And the motion carries. So that item we will discuss separately. So at this time, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda item with the exclusion of the facility usage request?
So moved.
Mr. Frank makes the motion. Mr. Shuford makes the second. Any discussion? If not, then all in favor? And the motion carries. So now, my concern is the length of time on the facility usage request. You should have that in your packet there. That's from the beginning of March to the beginning of August. 2 nights a week. I realize that school will not be in session during some of those times, but I also look on the form for facility usage, and it says that it's not a school-sponsored event. It's not a school-related event. It's not a youth organization event, and it's not a nonprofit sponsored event. That's a little worrisome to me that there's no fee charged for using the facility for 5 months. Just my opinion. I don't know all the particulars and the ins and the outs. I'm just saying that this doesn't sound hardly. This doesn't hardly sound right to me.
It's a Go ahead. You can.
I was just gonna say, this continues to come back to us over the last, 4 years that I've been on the board. It continues to come back. This is a for-profit organization.
Yes.
I don't understand why there would not be a fee for that. I mean, I assume that this does not conflict with any of the, our sports or anything like that. The time frame, 6:30 to 8:30, there isn't any of our sports teams that are specifically using the facilities. So I personally don't have an issue with the time frame as far as the 5 months is concerned, but this is a for-profit organization at this point in time that is asking to consistently use our facilities, which includes our maintenance, having to stick around and do, clean up and all that kind of stuff. They're not mopping floors afterwards. So I'm not real sure that this feels like an appropriate request right now of the school system to be using our facilities for free for a for-profit organization.
Well, even though Ms. Bennett did say or note in the application that custodial staff would still be at school at 8:30 in the evening, and they could, have the building open and close the building up. But yet it's just a little bothersome to me that we're becoming a business incubator for a group or individual in the community.
Can someone remind me what the cost is? Do we have that somewhere? Like what that cost is for a I just can't remember. I know we had something, didn't we?
We do have a cost.
There's a schedule in your packet.
Yeah.
What the cost would be? But we're waiving that cost. Is what
Gymnasium located at a middle school or high school, $30 per hour or $150 per day.
And they want it for 2 hours?
2 hours. Right.
Are we waiving the cost because it's requested or because it's recommended?
Well, that's another point I'm not sure on, Chuck. Do you have any further?
The only thing that I can say is historically that has been waived for this group. So I think they just followed suit and did it again. And as Ms. Pupo stated, that's something that had been going on for the past 4 years. So it wasn't something that was new to the board. And I do recall last year you guys did ask to pull it out and have some discussion on it. And we did last year approve to move forward with it.
A couple things to remember too. We did this at Big League Camp for the first couple of years, try to donate a lot of our stuff back, and we found out that we run into a lot of costs with the lights and so on. This year we have new heating and air in the gymnasium, which is going to run during that time period to give us some costs. So it may be time to re-look at that cost and maybe talk to them about, we know you're charging gate or whatever it is to come in. We need to offset these costs with that, whether it's the lights, the power bill, whatever it may be. But we got into ourselves a little bind trying to help people out too much over the years because the costs continue to go up for us. So we try not to make it crazy expensive, but we asked them to pay their fair share to support the county and athletics and stuff. So.
Well, as I understand it, these youth that would be participating in this do pay a fee to the sponsor to participate. Am I right on that? Okay.
You're correct. And I think, and I guess Raekwon's still doing it, I think he's doing it in good taste for the kids to build up our program. But we're also giving him, a great facility to do that. And as long as it's not a burden on us cost-wise, I would support it. But I think we also need to have them pay their fair share. If I'm coaching a team, a travel team, I know there's fees everywhere that I go that's associated with it, and I don't mind paying it, so to a point.
I want to piggyback on what you said concerning the cost to operate those facilities. Even if we allow them access to our facilities, why does it have to be the most expensive facility that we own to operate? It's like you said, the air conditioning, the lights in there, and thank goodness we got LED lights, so the cost should actually come down a little bit. But we also have other gyms that are regulation gyms that, why couldn't they use those, as an option? I think we need to be good stewards of our, facilities, and I'm not trying to say anything derogatory toward this organization, but I agree. I think we need to look at other places that we have that could be a whole lot less costly to us. And as the closing thing on this request is zero reimbursement to us.
Yeah, and that's a great point. You do that. And if something they're going to run into, let's just say parking, for instance, where parking at East McDowell might not be as good as what it's at the high school, and they're thinking this so many people is going to be there, I would pay that cost, the new cost, to play at the high school versus going to East to have that cost waived just because the parking's better or the flow's better for it, or there's an auxiliary gym. I'm guessing they're asking for the main gym and not the auxiliary gym too to warm up in.
I would suppose.
And I think perhaps the fact that we've got custodian and our buildings open later at the high school may be the reason, Mr. Frank, why they have utilized the high school in the past. So we didn't have to employ someone to stick around potentially at an east or west middle. And that's just one hypothesis.
Well,
I don't know that I've got the answer to that.
Right. Well, I'm just like Mr. Suttle said, I'd just like to know the cost we're incurring, just out of curiosity, if nothing else.
Sure.
Wait, are there games that are happening and they're charging admission to games
Typically,
on
that's what
top
happens
of
with
the
travel ball.
fees? I just don't, like, could my business come in and operate out of McDowell County School Systems for free?
If you
Like,
baked apple pies,
could I use the kitchens over at the high school? I mean,
well,
I just,
why couldn't you?
I
mean, you know.
for free. I mean, when I said that this continues to come back for us, it's this, we pull this every time and have the same discussion about this particular organization. Is it appropriate for us to let them to have it for free, considering other businesses might want to be in there? They're making money off of the school system. We're giving it to them for free. I don't know. Look, I got a month left, but like, it just doesn't seem right to me that we're continuing to support this one business. And I get it. It's a feeder program for our school system. We're having fantastic results in our high school programs over the last year or couple of years. A lot of that, of course, is contributing to our coaching staff, but also we all know that you raise up. You know, we get that. But again, this is a business that's generating income off of the school system. And we don't do that.
Right.
Like
Well, I'm not saying that we should deny the request, but I do think we should alter the request to say, you know, for a nominal fee. You know, whether it's $50, $60 a week, you know, half price or whatever.
Are they actually having games there, from, against other teams, or is it
That's
for
typically what
practice?
happens. It's like a travel program that meets at one place from other towns outside.
Oh,
and
okay. I
play
thought
one
they were
another.
just practicing.
Well, that was my thought
That's
too,
my
that they were
understanding.
just
And so
practicing.
then the other teams that would play would also pay a fee? Is that how?
That's typically not what it is. One person's usually in charge, and that person pays the fee. If they're just using it for just practices and there's no games listed on there, the kids are still getting charged to be on the team, and we're still incurring costs. That's going to be the thing to find out what the cost is. I'm not saying we charge above the cost, but at least
That's
cover
what I
the
But
power
like
or whatever it may be.
If it's like, if it's a softball tournament or a baseball tournament, and your team wants to pay, you also pay an entry fee.
Yeah, you pay the
So
person in
that's
charge.
what I'm wondering, what other fees are they charging?
Probably need to specify, number one, is it a game or is it just practice time? Because then you'll know what's incurring. Typically, those on Saturdays, they're asking for Tuesdays and Thursdays. So that makes me think it probably is practice because games are on Saturdays.
That's right.
That's what
That's my
I would
understanding.
suppose. Chuck, do you have something?
I was going to just say, can we table it and have a recommendation on which facility and I think recovering our cost?
Mhm.
I think we can because the request was from March 3rd to August 4th, or 7th, I'm sorry. So, yeah, we could table that. Is that the desire of the board to table until next month, that we can gather some more information? Well, I'm just trying to gauge everybody right now. Well,
I'd like to make
okay.
a motion that we table it till next month and we get some recommendations from our executive team.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Abernathy, Ms. Mumo, and Mr. Abernathy, any further discussion? If not, then all in favor? And the motion carries. Thank you all. Look, I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud, but, you know.
Well, I think the other thing you gotta think of is are you setting a precedent for the next, like another, what about a soccer travel? You know, it just could kind of snowball too, in a way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So.
Okay. All right. So now, the board needs to entertain a motion to move into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11 for the following purposes. Under subsection A1, to prevent the disclosure of privileged or confidential student information, and also under subsection A1, to prevent the disclosure of privileged or confidential personnel information. And so is there a motion to move into closed session for those purposes?
I'll make that motion.
Mr. Schufer makes the motion. Ms. Poupeau makes the second. Any discussion? All in favor then? And the motion carries. And the board moves into closed session at 8:25. Thank you all.